Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to take you through an overview of the French Revolution. On this first slide, you can see the title, Summary by Class Cloud and the French Revolution for Class 9 CBSE. We'll be exploring the key events, causes, and impacts of this important historical period. So, let's get started and dive into what made the French Revolution a turning point in history. Let's take a closer look at the background of France under Louis XVI around 1774. At that time, France was facing a serious financial crisis, mainly because of the costs of wars, including supporting the American colonies and the lavish expenses of the royal court. The situation was worsening because the treasury was almost empty. Society was divided into three main estates. The first estate was the clergy, who enjoyed privileges and were exempt from taxes. The second estate was the nobility, who also had special privileges and owed feudal dues. The third estate, which made up the majority of the population, included peasants, artisans, and the bourgeoisie. They bore the burden of paying taxes, which created a lot of frustration. Meanwhile, the population was growing, and that led to food shortages and a subsistence crisis. People simply couldn't get enough to eat. During this period, Enlightenment thinkers like Locke, Rousseau, and Montesquieu were inspiring new ideas about liberty, equality, and fraternity. These ideas would become the foundation for the revolutionary movement. All these factors, the financial crisis, social inequality, food shortages, and new ideas, set the stage for the French Revolution that was to come. Let's take a closer look at the key events that marked the outbreak of the revolution. In May 1789, the Estates General was called together to approve new taxes, which was a significant moment because it was the first time in a long while that the different social estates came together. The Third Estate, representing common people, demanded that each member have one vote, equal to the other estates. When this was rejected, they took a bold step and formed the National Assembly, vowing to create a new constitution during what became known as the Tennis Court Oath. Then, on July 14, 1789, the storming of the Bastille took place. This event is often seen as a symbol of the tyranny of the ancient regime and a turning point in the revolution. It sparked widespread peasant revolts, which are often called the Great Fear. These revolts caused nobles to flee and led to the abolition of feudal privileges. All these events, from the calling of the Estates General to the storming of the Bastille and the peasant revolts, collectively ignited the French Revolution, fundamentally challenging the old order and paving the way for profound social and political change. Now, let's look at Class 9 CBSE's summary on the constitutional monarchy established in 1791. This was a significant shift because it introduced the Constitution of 1791, which limited the powers of the monarchy and introduced the idea of separation of powers among the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. This was a move towards a more balanced and fair system of governance. Additionally, the rights of individuals were declared in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. These included fundamental rights such as life, liberty, equality, and property. These ideas became foundational for modern democratic principles. However, it's important to note that voting rights during this time were still quite restricted. Only active citizens, mainly wealthy men, had the right to vote. Women and the poor were excluded from this political process. This period was a crucial part of the broader French Revolution, which aimed to challenge old structures of power and promote equality. It set important precedents for future democratic movements and reforms. So let's take a closer look at the key events during Class 9 CBSE's coverage of France becoming a republic. In 1792, France was involved in a war with Austria and Prussia, which intensified the revolutionary atmosphere. During this period, the Jacobins, led by Robespierre, gained significant influence. This was a time of intense political upheaval. On August 10, 1792, the storming of the Palace of Tuileries marked a major turning point, leading to the abolition of the monarchy. Shortly after, in 1793, King Louis XVI was executed, which officially declared France a republic. This was a bold move that signaled the end of monarchy in France and the rise of a new political order. However, this period was also marked by the Reign of Terror from 1793 to 1794. Robespierre's leadership was characterized by harsh policies, including the use of the guillotine to eliminate enemies of the revolution, rationing of resources, and laws promoting equality. It was a time of extreme violence and radical change. Eventually, the fall of the Jacobins led to the establishment of the Directory, a 5-member executive body. But this period of instability created an environment that allowed Napoleon Bonaparte to rise to power. Overall, these events encapsulate the turbulent journey of the French Revolution, highlighting how revolutionary ideals were pursued amidst chaos and violence, ultimately transforming France into a republic and setting the stage for future political changes. Let's talk about the role of women during the French Revolution. Women of the Third Estate, which included a large portion of the population, often worked as seamstresses, servants, or market sellers. Despite their tough circumstances, many women became politically active. They formed clubs, like the Society of Revolutionary and Republican Women, to push for their rights. One of their key demands was equality, and figures like Olympe de Gouges even wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Woman to advocate for women's rights. Initially, these efforts led to some reforms, such as improvements in education and the right to divorce. However, in a turn of events, many of these women's clubs were eventually banned. But despite all these struggles, women in France finally gained the right to vote in 1946, marking a significant milestone. So, the role of women was quite active and evolving during this period. They played a crucial part in shaping the revolutionary movement and pushing for equality, which connects to the broader theme of social change and struggle for rights during the French Revolution. Let's take a closer look at Class 9, CBSE, and the impact of the French Revolution. Initially, it's important to understand that French colonies in the Caribbean, such as those producing sugar, coffee, and indigo, relied heavily on slave labor. In 1794, the convention abolished slavery, which was a significant step. However, Napoleon later reintroduced slavery, and it wasn't finally abolished until 1848. Moving to the everyday life and legacy, one of the major changes was the abolition of censorship. This led to a rise in newspapers, pamphlets, and political songs, tools that helped spread revolutionary ideas among the common people. You'll also notice the emergence of new symbols representing liberty and freedom, such as the red cap symbolizing liberty, broken chains denoting freedom, and fasces, which stand for unity. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself emperor, but more importantly, he helped spread revolutionary ideas across Europe, ideas of equality, liberty, and fraternity. These principles didn't stay confined to France. They inspired anti-colonial movements around the world. Figures like Tipu Sultan in India and Raja Ramohan Roy drew on these ideas in their struggles against colonial rule. So, the French Revolution wasn't just a French event. It became a global catalyst for change, shaping ideas of liberty and equality that still influence us today. Let's take a closer look at the key dates of the French Revolution. It all begins in 1774 when Louis XVI becomes king. This marks the start of a period of significant change. Then, in 1789, we see the Estates General convened, and crucially, the storming of the Bastille occurs, which is often considered the symbolic beginning of the revolution. Moving on to 1791, we see the adoption of a new constitution, leading to a constitutional monarchy, which aimed to limit the king's power. However, tension continues to escalate, and by 1792-93, the revolution shifts gears with the declaration of the Republic and the execution of King Louis XVI, signaling a complete break from monarchy. The following year, 1793-94, is marked by the Reign of Terror, a period of intense political purges led by Robespierre. After this turbulent time, in 1795, the Directory is established as the new governing body, moving towards stability. Then, in 1804, Napoleon rises to power and proclaims himself emperor, marking a new phase in French history. His empire ultimately collapses after his defeat at Waterloo in 1815. These dates collectively illustrate the dramatic political upheaval, shifts in power, and the revolutionary spirit that transformed France and had a lasting impact worldwide. Connecting all these points helps us understand how revolutionary ideals evolved and spread during this period of profound change. On this final slide, I want to highlight how we are committed to providing academic tutorial services across a wide range of student levels. We cater to primary classes, intermediate, and senior secondary students, specifically focusing on CBSE board examinations as well as other relevant boards across India. Our approach is flexible, offering both offline and online modes of instruction to ensure accessibility and convenience for every student. The key idea here is that we aim to elevate your learning journey through our Class Cloud platform. It's designed to make learning more engaging, interactive, and effective, whether you're at the beginning stages of your education or preparing for important board exams. By integrating these services, we're not just supporting academic success, but also fostering a seamless and enriched learning experience that adapts to your needs, regardless of where you are or what your preferred learning style is. This is all part of our overall mission to make quality education accessible and impactful.